The rain battered the windows of our old Victorian house in Portland, Oregon, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing inside me. I was 22, caught in a life that felt like a dress 2 sizes too small, and tonight my mom's friend Claire was coming over. I didn't know then that stepping into the kitchen with her would unravel everything I thought I knew about myself. It was a Friday evening in late autumn, the kind where the air smells of damp leaves and wood smoke. My mom Ellen had invited Claire for dinner, a ritual they'd kept since their college days. Claire was different from Mom's other friends. She was a painter, a wanderer, someone who wore her life like a canvas splashed with bold, unapologetic colors. At 38, she had this quiet intensity, like she could see through you without trying. I'd always been a little intimidated by her, maybe because her hazel eyes seemed to linger on me a second too long, or maybe because I caught myself staring back. "Sam, can you help Claire in the kitchen?" Mom called from the living room, where she was fussing over a playlist of nostalgic indie tracks. I groaned inwardly. I was more comfortable hiding behind my sketchbook than making small talk with someone who felt like a walking mystery. But I shuffled toward the kitchen anyway, my sneakers scuffing the hardwood floor. Claire was already there, tying an apron around her waist, her auburn hair spilling over her shoulders. The kitchen smelled of garlic and rosemary, and a pot of soup simmered on the stove. She glanced up, her smile soft but disarming. "Hey Sam," she said, her voice low and warm, like a song you didn't realize you loved until it played. "Wanna chop some carrots? I promise I won't make you do the onions." I laughed, a nervous sound that betrayed me. "Deal," I said, grabbing a knife. The counter was cluttered with vegetables and cutting boards, and as I stood next to her, I felt the air shift, like the moment before a lightning strike. Our elbows brushed as she handed me a carrot, and I swear my skin burned where we touched. I told myself it was nothing, just static, just nerves. But then she looked at me, really looked, and I forgot how to breathe. "So," she said, slicing a potato with practiced ease, "your mom says you're still figuring out what's next. College didn't stick, huh?" Her tone wasn't judgmental, just curious, like she genuinely wanted to know me. I shrugged, focusing on the carrot to avoid her gaze. "Yeah, I dropped out last year. Art school felt, I don't know, like I was pretending to be someone I'm not." She nodded, as if she understood more than I'd said. "Sometimes you gotta lose yourself to find yourself," she murmured, her knife pausing mid-slice. Took me years to figure that out. There was a weight to her words, a story she wasn't telling. I wanted to ask, but the words stuck in my throat. We worked in silence for a while, the rhythm of chopping and stirring filling the space. Every so often our hands would graze, a fleeting touch as she passed me a bowl, a brush of fingers when I handed her a spoon. Each time my heart stuttered and I cursed myself for it. This was Claire, my mom's friend, practically family. I was reading too much into it, wasn't I? But then she leaned closer, pointing at my uneven carrot slices with a teasing grin. "You're gonna give Gordon Ramsay a heart attack with those," she said, her breath warm against my ear. I froze, my pulse hammering. She didn't pull back right away, and for one reckless moment I wondered what would happen if I turned my head just an inch. "Sam," Mom's voice broke the spell, calling from the dining room. "Can you grab the wine from the cellar?" I stepped back, my face hot, muttering something about being right back. As I fled to the basement, my mind raced. What was that? Was I imagining things, or had Claire felt it too, that spark, that pull, that impossible something? In the dim cellar, surrounded by dusty bottles, I pressed my hands to my cheeks, trying to steady myself. I'd never been in love, never even been kissed, not really. Growing up in a small, conservative suburb outside Portland, I'd learned to keep my feelings locked tight, especially the ones I didn't understand. I'd had crushes on girls before, fleeting and secret, but I'd buried them deep, convinced they were wrong, unnatural. Yet here was Claire, unraveling me with a single glance. When I returned to the kitchen, wine bottle in hand, Claire was stirring the soup, humming softly. She looked up, and her eyes held mine for a beat too long. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice gentle but searching. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. But as I set the bottle on the counter, her fingers brushed mine again, deliberate this time, and I knew I wasn't imagining it. Dinner was a blur. Mom chattered about work. Claire shared stories of her latest art exhibition. And I sat there, picking at my food, my mind replaying every moment in the kitchen. By the time Claire left, promising to come back next week, I was a mess of nerves and hope. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, something I couldn't undo. The next morning, I found a note tucked into my sketchbook, in Claire's elegant handwriting. "Keep drawing, Sam. You've got a spark. Don't hide it." My heart raced as I traced the words, wondering if they meant more than they said. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that Claire would become both my salvation and my storm. The week dragged on, each day a battle between anticipation and dread. Claire's note sat folded in my pocket, its edges worn from my constant fidgeting. I hadn't seen her since that night in the kitchen, but her presence lingered in every corner of the house, like a melody I couldn't stop humming. By Thursday, I was restless, sketching furiously to keep my thoughts from spiraling. My drawings had changed since that night. Less structured, more raw, full of swirling lines and shadowed faces that looked suspiciously like Claire. Mom noticed, raising an eyebrow at my latest piece. "Someone's inspired," she said, her tone teasing but kind. I mumbled something non-committal, my face burning. When Friday arrived, I was a wreck. Claire was coming over again and I didn't know how to face her. Would she act like nothing had happened? Had anything even happened? I spent the afternoon cleaning the house, a nervous habit, scrubbing counters until my hands were raw. When the doorbell rang, my stomach lurched. Claire walked in, carrying a bottle of red wine and a canvas bag full of art supplies. "Thought I'd show you some tricks," she said, winking at me as she set the bag on the dining table. Mom clapped her hands, delighted. "Oh, Sam could use a mentor. She's got talent, but she's stubborn about it." I shot Mom a look, but Claire just laughed, her voice like a warm breeze. "Stubborn's not a bad thing," she said, her eyes locking onto mine. "Means you've got fire." My breath caught, and I busied myself with setting the table to avoid her gaze. After dinner, Mom suggested we work on art together while she cleaned up. "You two go play with your paints," she said, shooing us toward the living room. My heart pounded as I followed Claire, who spread out her supplies on the coffee table. Tubes of acrylics, brushes, a small canvas. "Let's make something messy," she said, her smile daring me to let go. We painted side by side, our knees brushing under the table. She showed me how to blend colors, her hand guiding mine across the canvas, her touch steady but electric. "Don't think too much," she murmured, her voice close to my ear. "Just feel it." I tried to focus on the canvas, but all I could feel was her warmth, her scent, the way her fingers lingered on mine. "Tell me something real," she said suddenly, her brush pausing. "What's the one thing you're afraid to say out loud?" Her question hit like a punch and I froze, paint dripping onto the table. I wanted to say it, to confess the confusion and longing clawing at my chest, but fear held me back. I don't know," I stammered, my voice barely a whisper. She tilted her head, studying me. "You do," she said softly. "But it's okay. You don't have to say it yet." Her words were a lifeline, but they also terrified me. What did she see in me? What did she know? We painted until midnight, the canvas a chaotic blend of colors that somehow felt like us. When Mom called us for dessert, Claire leaned close, her voice low. "You're braver than you think, Sam." She squeezed my hand just for a moment, and I felt like I could fly or fall apart. The next day, I found myself at the local art supply store, buying paints I couldn't afford, driven by a need to create something worthy of her. But when I got home, there was a text from Claire. "Meet me at the gallery downtown tomorrow, 2 p.m. Bring your sketchbook." My heart leapt, but doubt crept in. Was this just a friendly gesture? Or something more? I didn't know, but I was already counting the hours. Saturday came and I arrived at the gallery, a small eclectic space filled with Claire's paintings. She was there waiting, her smile bright but nervous. "I wanted you to see my work," she said, guiding me through the exhibit. Her art was raw, vulnerable, full of women in moments of quiet strength. Women who looked like they'd loved and lost and kept going. One painting stopped me cold. A figure with short chestnut hair, standing in a kitchen, her eyes full of unspoken longing. It was me. "Claire," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Is this?" She nodded, her expression unreadable. "I see you, Sam," she said. "I've always seen you." The air between us crackled, and for the first time, I let myself believe this wasn't just in my head. But as we stood there surrounded by her art, a shadow fell over me. Claire was my mom's friend, a woman 16 years older, someone with a life I couldn't begin to understand. What was I doing falling for her? And what would happen when Mom found out? The gallery's silence was deafening, Claire's words echoing in my head. "I see you, Sam." I stood frozen before the painting, my own face staring back, a mirror of my unspoken desires. My heart screamed to reach for her, but fear, of judgment, of ruin, clamped down hard. Claire stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "You okay?" she asked, her hand hovering near mine, not quite touching. I nodded, but my throat was tight, words trapped behind a wall of panic. I wanted to ask what this meant, what we meant, but the weight of it all, her age, my mom, the world outside, kept me silent. "Let's get some air," she suggested, sensing my turmoil. We stepped outside into the crisp Portland afternoon, the city buzzing with life. We walked along the Willamette River, the water glinting under a rare break in the clouds. Claire didn't push, just matched my pace, her presence a quiet anchor. "I painted that piece after the night in the kitchen," she said finally, her eyes on the river. "You were different. Like you were holding something back, but it was fighting to get out." She glanced at me, her gaze piercing. "I know what that feels like." I stopped walking, my hands shoved deep in my pockets. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the river's murmur. She sighed, leaning against the railing. "I was married once, Sam. To a man. I thought it was what I was supposed to do. But it wasn't me. It took years and a lot of pain to admit I loved women." Her confession hit me like a wave. I'd never heard her talk about her past, not like this. "Did you lose people?" I asked, thinking of Mom, of the life I'd built on keeping secrets. Claire nodded, her eyes distant. "Some. But I gained myself. That's worth everything." We walked on, her words sinking in. I wanted to tell her I felt the same, that I'd spent years hiding crushes on girls, pretending they were just admiration. But the thought of saying it out loud, of making it real, terrified me. What if Mom didn't understand? What if I lost her? That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying Claire's story, her painting, the way her hand had felt so close to mine. By morning I was a mess, but I couldn't stay away. I texted her. "Can we talk?" She replied instantly. "My studio, noon." Claire's studio was a converted loft downtown, cluttered with canvases and paint-splattered furniture. She was there, working on a new piece, her hands streaked with blue. "Hey," she said, smiling, but there was a question in her eyes. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding. I think I'm like you," I said, the words tumbling out. "I've always felt different, but I didn't know how to say it. Until you." Her brush stilled, and for a moment the world stopped. Then she crossed the room, her movements careful, like she was approaching a startled animal. "Sam," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "That's the bravest thing you could have said." She reached for my hand, and this time I didn't pull away. Her touch was warm, grounding, and for the first time I felt seen. But the moment shattered when my phone buzzed. It was Mom asking where I was. Guilt flooded me, and I stepped back, my hand slipping from Claire's. "I can't do this," I whispered, panic rising. "Not yet." Claire's face softened, but there was pain in her eyes. "I'll wait," she said simply. "As long as you need." I left the studio in a daze, my mind a tug-of-war between desire and fear. Over the next few days I avoided Claire, ignoring her texts, skipping dinner when she came over. But every night I dreamed of her, her laugh, her touch, the way she made me feel alive. I was falling and I didn't know how to stop. Then came the moment I couldn't avoid. Mom had invited Claire for a movie night, and I couldn't excuse myself without raising suspicion. Claire arrived, her usual warmth tempered by a quiet sadness. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, Mom between us, oblivious to the tension. During a quiet scene, Claire's eyes met mine and I saw the question there. "What are we doing?" After the movie, Mom went to bed, leaving us to clean up. In the kitchen, the air was thick with unspoken words. "Sam," Claire said, her voice low, "I don't want to push you, but I feel something here." "Do you?" Her honesty disarmed me, and before I could think, I nodded. "I do," I whispered. "But I'm scared." She stepped closer, her hand brushing my cheek. "Me too," she said. "But sometimes scared is where the good stuff starts." And then before I could overthink it, she kissed me. It was soft, tentative, but it set my world on fire. For one perfect moment, nothing else mattered. That kiss in the kitchen was a spark in a dry forest, and I was burning. Claire's lips lingered in my mind, her touch a phantom on my skin as I stumbled through the days that followed. But with every high came a crash, guilt, fear, and the gnawing certainty that this couldn't last. I avoided the kitchen, the scene of our crime, as if the countertops could betray us. Mom noticed my distance, her brow furrowing when I dodged her questions. "You okay, Sam?" she asked one morning, pouring coffee. "You've been off." I mumbled something about stress and fled to my room, where I stared at Claire's note, still tucked in my sketchbook. Her words, "You've got a spark. Don't hide it," felt like both a promise and a challenge. Claire texted me daily, her messages gentle but persistent. "Thinking of you. Miss your laugh." I wanted to reply, to tell her I was drowning in feelings I couldn't name, but every time I typed a response, I deleted it. What was I doing, kissing my mom's friend? What if Mom found out? The thought of her disappointment, or worse, her rejection, made my chest ache. But Claire wasn't so easy to shake. A week later, she showed up at our house unannounced, a canvas under her arm. "For you," she said, handing it to me while Mom was in the other room. It was a small painting, a swirl of blues and golds, two figures reaching for each other against a stormy sky. "It's us," she whispered, her voice thick with meaning. I hid it in my closet, terrified Mom would see it and ask questions. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing Claire's face, the way her eyes softened when she looked at me. I was falling in love, and it scared me to death. I needed to talk to someone, but who? My friends wouldn't understand, and Mom was out of the question. So I did the only thing I could think of. I went to Claire. Her studio was quiet when I arrived, the late afternoon light casting long shadows. She was painting, her hands moving with purpose, but she stopped when she saw me. "Sam," she said, her voice a mix of surprise and relief. "I thought you were avoiding me." "I was," I admitted, my voice shaking. "I'm scared, Claire. It's too much. What if we hurt people? What if I lose my mom?" She set her brush down, crossing the room to stand in front of me. "I know," she said, her eyes searching mine. "I've been where you are. But hiding who you are, it's a heavier loss than you think." She reached for my hand, and I let her, the warmth of her skin grounding me. "I don't know how to do this," I confessed. I've never been with anyone, let alone." I trailed off, my face burning. Claire's smile was soft, understanding. "We go slow," she said. "No pressure. Just you and me, figuring it out." For the next few weeks we stole moments. Quiet walks by the river, late-night texts. A stolen kiss in her car after she drove me home from the gallery. Each moment was a thread, weaving us closer, but the fear never left. I was lying to Mom, sneaking around like a teenager, and it ate at me. Claire sensed it, her touches growing more cautious, her eyes searching for answers I didn't have. Then came the night everything unraveled. Mom had invited Claire over for a potluck with some of her other friends. I tried to act normal, but every time Claire laughed or brushed past me, my heart raced. During dinner, Mom's friend Lisa, a nosy lawyer with a knack for gossip, watched us too closely. "You two seem close," she said, her tone teasing but sharp. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. Claire laughed it off, but I saw the flicker of worry in her eyes. Later, as we cleared the table, Lisa cornered me in the kitchen. "What's going on with you and Claire?" she asked, her voice low. "I saw the way she looks at you." I stammered, denying everything, but my face gave me away. Lisa's eyes narrowed, and I knew she wouldn't let it go. That night I lay awake, panic clawing at me. If Lisa suspected, how long until Mom did? I wanted to tell Claire we had to stop, but the thought of losing her was unbearable. I was trapped, caught between the life I'd always known and the one I was starting to want. The next morning, Mom was quieter than usual, her eyes lingering on me as I poured cereal. "Sam," she said finally, "is there something you need to tell me?" My heart stopped. Had Lisa said something? I shook my head, my throat too tight to speak. But as I left for class, I knew the truth was closing in. Mom's question hung over me like a storm cloud, heavy and inescapable. I spent the day in a fog, barely hearing my professors, my mind replaying her words. "Is there something you need to tell me?" I wanted to tell her everything about Claire, about me, but the fear of losing her love kept me silent. Claire sensed the shift when I met her at a coffee shop that evening. We sat in a corner booth, the hum of conversation masking our own. "You look like you're carrying the world," she said, her hand resting near mine on the table. I told her about Lisa, about Mom's question, my voice cracking with panic. "What if she hates me?" I whispered. "What if she hates us?" Claire's face softened, but there was steel in her eyes. "Your mom loves you, Sam. She might need time, but she won't hate you. And if she struggles, I'll be here." Her words were a lifeline, but they didn't erase the dread pooling in my stomach. We agreed to be more careful to avoid suspicion, but it felt like trying to hold water in my hands. Every touch, every glance was a risk, and yet I couldn't stay away. Claire was my oxygen, my courage, the first person who made me feel like I could be myself. But the secrecy was suffocating, and I hated lying to Mom. A week later, the tension broke. I was helping Mom with laundry when she stopped folding, her hands gripping a towel. "Sam," she said, her voice tight, "Lisa told me she saw you and Claire at the gallery. She said it looked like more than friendship." My heart plummeted, my hands trembling as I dropped a shirt. It's not," I stammered, but the lie died on my lips. Mom's eyes were wide, searching, and I couldn't hide anymore. "I love her," I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "I'm in love with Claire." The silence that followed was deafening, her face a mix of shock and something I couldn't read, hurt, maybe, or betrayal. "Claire," she whispered, like the name itself was a wound. "My Claire? Sam, she's my friend. She's so much older than you." Her voice broke, and I felt like I'd shattered something precious. "I didn't mean for it to happen," I said, tears stinging my eyes. I love her, Mom. And I think I'm gay." The word hung between us, raw and real. Mom sat down heavily, her hands covering her face. "I need time," she said finally, her voice muffled. "I need to think." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak, and left her there, the weight of my confession crushing me. I went to Claire's studio, my vision blurred with tears. She pulled me into her arms, holding me as I sobbed. "It's okay," she murmured, her voice steady. "You were brave. You told your truth, but it didn't feel brave. It felt like I'd lost my mom, the one constant in my life." The next few days were agony. Mom barely spoke to me, her eyes avoiding mine. I stayed with Claire, sleeping on her couch, too afraid to face the silence at home. Claire was patient, giving me space but never letting me feel alone. We talked for hours about her coming out, about the friends she'd lost, the freedom she'd gained. "It gets better," she promised, her hand squeezing mine. "But it's hard first." One night, as we sat on her balcony, the city lights sparkling below, I kissed her. It wasn't like the first time, tentative and unsure. This kiss was fierce, desperate, a claim on the life I wanted. "I love you," I said, the words a vow. Claire's eyes shone with tears, but she smiled. "I love you too, Sam. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." But the world wasn't done testing us. A week later, Mom called me home. When I arrived, she was sitting at the kitchen table, a photo album open in front of her. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice steady but tired. "About you, about Claire, about what this means." She pushed the album toward me, open to a picture of her and Claire in college, laughing, arms around each other. "She's been my rock for years. And now you." I braced myself, expecting anger, but her eyes were soft. "I don't understand everything," she said, "but I know I love you. And I want you to be happy." Tears spilled down my cheeks as she reached for my hand. "Just be careful, Sam. Love is beautiful, but it's messy. It wasn't full acceptance, not yet, but it was a start. As I hugged her, I felt a weight lift, the first glimmer of hope that we could find a way forward. Mom's words were a fragile bridge, not strong enough to carry all my hopes, but enough to keep me from falling. I returned to Claire's studio that night, my heart lighter but still tangled. "She's trying," I told Claire, curled up on her couch, her arm around me. "She's not there yet, but she's trying." Claire kissed my forehead, her touch a quiet promise. "That's more than I had when I came out," she said. "Give her time. She loves you." Her faith in Mom, in us, was a balm, but the road ahead felt uncertain. We were together, but the world, Mom's friends, our small town, even Claire's own past loomed like shadows. Over the next few weeks, we navigated our new reality. I moved back home, but I spent evenings with Claire, painting, talking, stealing kisses in her studio. Mom didn't ask about us, but she didn't stop me from going either. It was a tense truce, each of us feeling our way through the unknown. But the outside world wasn't so forgiving. Lisa, Mom's friend, had spread whispers, and soon curious glances followed me at the grocery store, the coffee shop, the library. "Is that Ellen's daughter?" I overheard one woman murmur. "With that artist woman?" The word stung, but Claire taught me to hold my head high. "People talk," she said one night, her voice fierce. "Let them. You're living your truth." Her strength fueled mine, and I started drawing again, pouring my confusion and love into my sketchbook. Claire framed one of my pieces, a portrait of her, her eyes soft and unguarded, and hung it in her studio. "You're an artist, Sam," she said. "Don't let anyone make you feel small." But the whispers reached Mom too. One evening she sat me down, her face tight with worry. "People are talking," she said. "I don't care what they think, but I'm worried about you." "Claire, she's older, Sam. She's lived a life you haven't. What if this doesn't work?" Her fear was real, and for the first time, I saw my own doubts reflected in her eyes. I wanted to reassure her, to say Claire and I were forever, but the truth was I didn't know. Claire was my everything, but the age gap, the secrecy, the judgment, it was a lot. That night I lay awake, questioning everything. Was I rushing into this? Was I enough for Claire, with her years of experience, her confidence, her world? The next day I went to Claire's studio, my heart heavy. "Do you ever think I'm too young for you?" I asked, my voice small. She set down her paintbrush, her expression serious. "Sam, I've lived enough to know what matters. You're not too young, you're you. And that's enough." She pulled me close, her arms a safe haven. "But you need to believe it too." Her words steadied me, but the doubt lingered. Then came the moment that tested us. Claire was invited to an art residency in New York, a 6-month program that could launch her career to new heights. She told me about it over dinner, her eyes bright with excitement but shadowed with worry. "I want this," she said, "but I don't want to lose you." The idea of her leaving gutted me. 6 months felt like forever, and New York was a world away. "Go," I said, forcing a smile. "It's your dream." But inside I was terrified. What if she found someone else? What if distance broke us? Claire saw through me, her hand finding mine. "Come with me," she said, her voice earnest. "Not forever, just for a visit. See if you can picture a life there with me." The invitation was a lifeline, but it also scared me. Leaving Portland meant leaving Mom, my home, the safety of the familiar. But staying meant letting Claire go, and I wasn't ready for that. I spent days agonizing, talking to Mom, sketching my fears into my notebook. Mom was quiet, her eyes searching mine. "Do you love her enough to try?" she asked finally. I nodded, tears falling. "Then go," she said. "But don't lose yourself in her, Sam. You're still finding who you are." Her blessing, however tentative, gave me courage. I told Claire I'd visit, and we made plans. 2 weeks in New York, a test of our love. As I packed my bag, my heart raced with equal parts fear and hope. I was stepping into the unknown, but for the first time, I felt ready to face it. New York was a whirlwind, a city of noise and light that swallowed me whole. Claire's tiny apartment in Brooklyn became our sanctuary, filled with her paintings and my sketches, a testament to the life we were building. Those 2 weeks were a dream, wandering art galleries, kissing in Central Park, laughing over late-night pizza. But they were also a mirror, reflecting the truth of us. Claire thrived in New York, her confidence blooming among artists and curators. I watched her shine, but I also felt small, a 22-year-old with no degree, no plan, just a heart full of love and fear. One night, as we lay in bed, the city humming outside, I voiced the doubt that had haunted me. What if I'm holding you back? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Claire turned to me, her eyes fierce. Sam, you're not holding me back. You're why I'm here, daring to dream bigger. She kissed me slow and deep, and for a moment I believed her. But the question lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. When I returned to Portland, the distance between us felt like a chasm. Claire stayed in New York, her residency demanding her focus. We texted, called, sent sketches and photos, but it wasn't the same. I missed her touch, her laugh, the way she made me feel whole. Mom saw my struggle, her own heart softening. Love is hard, Sam, she said one night, squeezing my hand. But it's worth it if it's real. Her words gave me strength, but they couldn't fill the void. 3 months into Claire's residency, she called me, her voice strained. I miss you, she said. But this opportunity, it's bigger than I expected. They want me to stay longer, maybe a year. My heart sank. A year? I couldn't imagine it. I want you to stay, I said, my voice breaking. But I need you to. The silence on the other end was agonizing. Come back, she said finally. Move here. We'll make it work. It was everything I wanted, but it terrified me. Leaving Mom, my home, my safety, it was a leap I wasn't sure I could take. I spent weeks wrestling with the decision, my sketchbook filling with images of Claire. Of us, of a future I could barely imagine. Mom watched me, her own heart torn. You're my baby, she said one night, tears in her eyes. But you're also your own person. If Claire's your home, go to her. Her words broke me open, and I knew what I had to do. I booked a one-way ticket to New York, my heart pounding with fear and hope. When I arrived, Claire was waiting at the airport, her arms open, her eyes shining. You're here, she whispered, pulling me close. We're here. The next months were messy, beautiful, and hard. I found a job at an art supply store, started taking classes, began to carve out a life in a city that scared and thrilled me. Claire and I fought about money, time, the weight of our differences, but we loved harder too. She taught me to trust myself, to embrace my art, my heart, my truth. One evening, as we sat on her balcony, the city sprawling below, Claire handed me a small canvas. It was the two of us, painted in bold strokes, our hands intertwined against a vibrant sky. This is us, she said, her voice thick with emotion. No matter what, we're worth it. I looked at her, at the life we were building, and knew she was right. Loving Claire wasn't easy. It came with judgment, doubt, and the weight of the world's eyes. But it was real and it was ours. As I kissed her, the city lights blurring around us, I felt a truth settle in my bones. Love, in all its messy glory, was the bravest thing I'd ever done. Back in Portland, Mom hung one of my sketches in the kitchen, a quiet nod to the daughter she was learning to understand. Claire and I visited when we could, bridging the gap between our worlds. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. We were enough. And so, in a kitchen where it all began, I found my truth, my love, my home. Claire was my storm and my shelter, and together we painted a life that dared to be ours.